Guys, coming out your video today, vlog style. Just basically this whole Seattle thing, I can't do it anymore. I just can't do it anymore. I tried to write this down, tried to put a positive spin to it, similar to like my COVID-19 video, you know, there's always a bright side in every situation, but there's no bright side to Seattle. There really isn't. I wanted to put it down like 5 reasons I want to leave, 1 reason I want to stay, and it just doesn't. The topic just doesn't deserve that kind of respect. So, a wild rant about what the hell is going on here. Man, and just look at this crap. There's still just so much construction in this city, it's amazing. I can't even get to where I want to go without like a 3-block diversion. Ugh. So, you may be guessing like, yeah, Seattle in turmoil and stuff like that, but the reality is that the things like the Chaz aren't really that dangerous if you aren't nearby, and you know, I'm not actually even in that neighborhood. Yeah, okay, it's about 8 blocks or something like that, but that may as well be 10 miles away in terms of vicinity. There's certainly people who lived about like a couple blocks from that and they weren't really affected, but if you're in it, you know, it's going to be pretty bad. So all the stuff about the headlines, like that isn't really a true concern. I mean, there's a lot more to the city than just those few blocks. I'm not upset with that. That's kind of amusing. But what hasn't been amusing is just how everything else has gotten worse. Now, a lot of these things may sound petty, but they're not petty if you have to live here. And one of the reasons is something that isn't petty. It's the most important thing. And that's what I'm going to talk about. So I'm just walking on my way to where I used to work in terms of my office. I'm clearing out the desk because I'm done. So you see these new skyscrapers behind me? They're all being completed this year. They're huge. All these buildings behind me, all of them, you can see, they're all brand new. They're waiting for workers like me to come back. And COVID-19 aside, there's no reason to come back. There's no reason to be here. So I'm going to try and be objective here. That is, I'm not going to attempt to bring up all the bad things and exclude all the good things, because there's things I do like about Seattle, but the more I look at it is that I like the things that are actually outside of it. Outside of Seattle. The actual city itself. It's bad. So I like the mountains, the hiking, the trails, the shooting events around here are excellent. I got into guns and golf. I mean, these things are pretty good, but they're not actually exclusive to this area. I like those things, but the one dampener on all the things that are outside of Seattle is that traffic here in the Puget Sound region is getting really, really bad. And I don't just mean like in Seattle or just outside of Seattle, but I mean, you go further and further south, and that's where I hang out. Traffic's genuinely bad, like really, really bad. Like double or triple your commute time, even if you're like 25 miles out of Seattle, it's just bad. Like just the management of the state, I don't get it. I mean, there's going to be a lot of geographical things in there, but it's not good. I don't need to place too much blame there. It's not good. So while those things are the things I like here, those aren't exclusive to this area. I mean, the great estate and nature here is fantastic, but to say that I'm a nature person would be definitely an overstatement. I appreciate it, but I haven't really taken that much time to really appreciate it. There's certainly other parts of America that are beautiful enough. So in general, on the good things, like enjoying nature, parks, recreation, water sports, that sort of thing, I'm hoping that I won't miss it because those things exist in other states too. Now, when I moved here 6.5 years ago, I liked that it wasn't a perfect city. You know what I mean? It wasn't super clean or clean. It wasn't perfect in any way, but holy fuck. Just look at how many tents are up. Do you see that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's a whole bunch more back behind that thing. Guy sleeping in the middle of the woods area over there. This is a small park, guys. It's completely overloaded. So there have always been, you know, crazies and drug addicts here. But what I'm seeing now is just that escalating. And when I go through my local area, I don't see any of the same faces. Like before, if I'd see like someone different, I'd give them, you know, a bit of a wide berth. I don't know what they're capable of, what they're up to. But these days, I only see strange faces and doing even stranger things. I mean, it's kind of comical. I do, you know, shoot footage of it here and there. Like some guy literally dancing in the middle of the intersection with a makeshift cape, just dancing. Another guy singing. A woman the other day, I was filling gas and a woman was just dancing around in the rain, and then she laid down in the rain, and that's where she lay down motionless, raining on herself for like over an hour. Like I left, I did some things, and I went back, and you know, she's still on the same piece of pavement with rain coming down, just lying down. But in terms of crazies and things, the protests were a little shocking. Mostly peaceful process, right? Mostly peaceful. But I live in an apartment building that has shops down below, and these were the kinds of things being targeted by them. It was just a question mark of whether or not it would be my building that would be the target. And, you know, with the fact that they're using fire as a weapon, it would mean that very easily in the middle of the night, my family could be out on the streets because someone's firebombed a business downstairs, a coffee shop, which seems to be a fanciful target for these fucking thugs. And we could be out on the street in the middle of a mostly peaceful protest in the middle of the night, and that, quite frankly, was very scary. For the most part, I felt relatively safe in Seattle and what I would do and what I would, you know, how I could protect myself in general, and I didn't think my concerns were that great. That my apartment in general is a relatively safe apartment, but if I'm forced to leave it in the middle of the night, the building itself provides no protection, right? I've left it because of fire alarm and natural fire. And so I did what a lot of other Americans have done, although I think my level of paranoia was more warranted, and that was I actually prepared my body armor, a rifle and sling, water, food, diapers, all the things I need to take care of my family for 24 hours, and had a plan to figure out, like, if something like that happened in the middle of the night, how we could bug out and vacate downtown and get out of there. And just for reference, this would all be by foot. I don't have a car, you know, so we're talking about where I'd be able to go down the alleyways of downtown Seattle and escape a mob. But why does a normal person have to think about that? You know what I mean? I'm an engineer working for, you know, evil big corporation. But I'm an engineer just trying to live a normal life, and I'm having to figure out how do I exfiltrate from my apartment when mostly peaceful protesters come around. And yeah, I know, like, some of the people I'm talking to, they might say, well, everyone should have that plan, and yeah, maybe that's true, but this was not just fanciful, this was like very real, you know what I mean? I had a sort of a fanciful idea about what I would do, but when those things started, I actually had to do something concrete. I packed a bag of fresh water, food, all that kind of stuff, and it was a very real situation. And I don't think it is that real for most people, and even if you really think about it, most people wouldn't prepare for that specifically. Like I think Warrior Poet Society John Lovell actually had a recent video talking about that he doesn't actually have a bug out bag, that he wouldn't do that. He couldn't just leave. For me, that's the only option. But thankfully, they didn't burn down the coffee shop I lived above. They burned down someone else's coffee shop. So there was someone else out on the street that night, having to negotiate their way through mostly peaceful protesters. My wife came to me for the first time. You know, I've been getting her into guns and stuff like that, and she likes the competition aspect, but in terms of actual self-defense use, she's far less concerned about it than I am, even though she's a woman, obviously far less capable of self-defense without certain tools. But she actually came to me for the first time and said, where's the gun that we use for home defense? You know, how do I protect myself? And the reality is I never actually considered it. I never considered it myself. I never had a plan for home defense. I felt our apartment was pretty safe. That someone would be in the hallway, we've got locked doors and whatnot, that we'd be pretty safe from anything that could happen. But she was genuinely concerned, and you know, I can see it. Like if there's mobs running the hallways and who knows what they want to get into, they'll get into it. And what do you do from there? If we didn't have a plan, you literally don't have anything, and I don't tell her where everything is. She doesn't keep track of it. And you know, even in the spot, you know, I'm a firearms guy. I didn't really know what we should do, to be honest. In general, you want to be having something that you can one hand, but you know, in the case of this style of thing where the invasion might be a lot of people, potentially, you really want a rifle. So I prepared a rifle, you know, cruiser, so loaded mag, empty chamber, that sort of thing. And I put it there in where, you know, where I put it, I'm not going to say. But I said, you know, I mean, as a firearms guy, I don't want to admit, but you know, I said, we don't really have a plan, you know. Even if you feel unsafe and you know how to charge it, what's stopping you from shooting me? You know, like how can you tell the difference? Like the idea is, in general, is you want to barricade yourself, so get into the furthest back room that you can and you know, point the gun down the hallway. But I'm like, don't shoot me. I don't know. I had no answer for that. You know, it's kind of hard to figure this stuff out. You know, to account for all of the things, basically. So I'm just going into my office now. I have to wear this in the office even though there's literally nobody here. So I can clear out my desk. So these offices have been clear since like Q1 this year. Basically empty. They've got some sanitation stations. I mean, they were trying to plan something to come back, but that's not going to happen. So it's a pretty nice view from my office here. This is, well, not my office, but the conference room behind my office. That's South Lake Union over there. That's Google Cloud's new offices here. So this is my workstation. Pretty simple. Try to keep a good keyboard, good mouse, that's about it. We have these crates that we use whenever we move desk. And I'm at the point where I've moved desk so many times I don't even bother taking my stuff out of the crate these days. So it's all good to go. So for many others this might be an emotional thing, clearing out your desk from a place you've worked with for quite a long time. And the reality is, you know, my last day of actually working, last time my team was in here was like March, and even then that was probably only one day in March. I was already sort of in lockdown in February, January. I was here very fleetingly, that's for sure. I was already quite concerned about COVID-19 in December. It was prudent then, information wasn't the same as it was now. So that's my desk cleared out. Won't be the last time I set foot in an office building up here. I'm sure there'll be things in the future. So there's been just a whole bunch of incidents that have really revolved around us encountering situations where the druggies, or whomever you want to call them, have interfered with us and the city's reaction to it. So with all of these lockdowns, the kids museum is down, so I've got nowhere to really take Junior. They put up like police tape around the children's playground areas and stuff like that. Lena heard about like a park over here in SIU. It's got a really nice new kids play area. She came down with my son, and there's like the kids play area. There's sort of like the one that's more suitable for toddlers. And she went over there, and there's a homeless person camping in the toddlers' playground equipment. And you know, like, the police would be like very concerned about my parking tickets. I have a special set of employees for doing that. But the tent literally on the side of the road next to the car that they're about to give a parking ticket to will be given a free pass, you know? She called Parks and Rec to say, hey, there's someone camping in the damn toddler playground. And you know their answer? Oh, it's meant to be closed anyway, so you know, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Meanwhile, the city pays for its Seattle Center. That's where like the Space Needle is, so we hang out there because, you know, it's a nice open area and whatnot. They literally pay security guards to make sure that we don't go behind the barrier and, you know, heaven forbid, allow a kid to play on a playground. Heaven forbid. They actually pay people to prevent kids from doing that. No less than 3 security guards there responsible for trying to keep kids off the playground. Even though all the data now shows that kids are not the risk. You know, and they're doing the very, very best to put asterisks around all the data, you know. Why not just let the data sit for itself? I thought this was called, you know, the science, quote unquote. The data is the data, and then they just put asterisks. Oh, but we think that they're asymptomatic and they can spread, an asymptomatic spread. Yeah, these are all couldas and woulda, shoulda, all this kind of stuff, but the data is indicating very good things. We should be jumping up and down for joy that the kids are safe. And you know, quite frankly, I was. When that data started flowing in, that the kids were basically safe, I was overjoyed. You know, I thought my young infant son was, you know, at risk. You know, I thought there could have been a real issue. I was very serious about it. That's why I was, you know, self-isolating from January, because the data was very unclear. It looked dangerous, but now it's not dangerous. And it's not worth it. You know, my son's not getting any interaction with other kids. Every time he sees other kids now or other people, he's shy. He's very shy. He tries to hide from them. It's pathetic, you know? And it's just because he's seen about like 3 humans this entire year. His collective memory is probably only from this year. And he's seen like 3 people and barely any kids. Now I think a lot of parents are starting to lighten up even here, and a lot of them are removing their masks. I'm not an anti-mask person. I wear a mask, whatever, it doesn't matter. I think it probably doesn't work as a system. Like, it could work in isolation, you know, a lab test or something like that, but the reality is I'm touching the front of my mask all the time, putting it in my pocket, stuff like that. And it's just taxing, you know. I have to take care of him, and there's less and less resources here to do that with. I paid for a yearly membership at the Kids Museum, and it's still closed. And like the Kids Museum, for reference, is basically an indoor playground. It's pretty useful because, you know, we don't get a lot of rain days here. And I paid for a full year membership on that, and I've used it for like 3 months because you know, we went into lockdown. And I think some precautions were worthwhile, especially in those early days, but I mean, they could have done something like members only, no tourists please, something like that, something reasonable. But just simply locking it down permanently, there's no choice there, you know what I mean? I've already paid for this membership, they're not refunding it. The other day I saw a woman talking to herself all day outside of our apartment. She had her trolley of things and whatnot. And there was I think perhaps a landlord outside of the other apartments that was kind of getting upset, told her to move along. And this got her really angry. So she moved along, was yelling across the street, and I was coming home from the opposite side, and I stayed on my side of the street watching this play out, trying to pretend I'm not trying to get back into my apartment.
Hey, everyone, get ready to talk yet.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So I pretend like I'm not trying to get back into my own apartment, keeping an eye on the situation. Anyway, so the guy's gone one end of the block, the lady's on the other end of the block. Next thing I see, she pulls out a 2x4, probably like 7 foot long 2x4, it's huge. Now she's not a very strong woman, but she'd raised it above her head with 2 hands, so she's ready to bring that down on something. And she basically creeps up to the guy that she was shouting at, and his back was turned. I'm like, oh fuck. Like, she's not the most capable person. If someone's able to defend themselves, they would be able to dodge that. But if she simply comes down on someone's head with that big ass 2x4, that person could easily be dead. So I grab my pepper spray. I'm about to like run across the street. Like, I gauge I was like about 25 yards to get across the street. She's about 30 yards out, so I've got maybe a few seconds to make my decision, as well as yell out to the guy. And thankfully he turned around. Like, I started to move, but thankfully he turned around and he was able to see it. And at that point, you know, very easy to defend himself from her, and she decided not to try strike at him. But you know, it's just that sort of casual thing here that you could. I was prevented from simply completing my walk because a homeless person decided to try and kill someone. Now, their commitment levels are very low, right? But that it doesn't change the fact that that person's life was at risk and they didn't even know it. Which brings me to a situation that was far more troubling. On another day, I'm trying to go for a walk again with my son, and I'm listening to an audiobook, but you know, in general, I keep my head on a swivel, and you know, you could guess what I've got prepared in terms of self-defense, you know, pepper spray and whatever else you think I may have. But in general, I feel pretty secure. I don't think it's a safe place, but I think I keep my head on a swivel, and I have the tools and preservation of mind to make sure that I stay safe, generally speaking. Like, if I see someone carrying a deadly weapon, like a piece of lumber or stuff like that, I clear out. You know, I'm not a macho guy, I just know how to avoid things. There was a guy, you know, completely disheveled, carrying like, I think like a 6-foot branch. It was thick, in Chinatown. I'm just waiting to get into a restaurant. This is closer to January. And he's just walking down the street, angry, shouting, muttering to himself, and just using the stick and this beating on some of the shops and restaurants' windows with it. I'm like, how it didn't break those windows, I have no idea. But people are just casually walking past him, you know? And I'm like, that guy is deranged and carrying a deadly weapon. You want to not be within 7 feet of that person. It really shocked me, just how people could be really bewildered by that, you know? Anyway, on another day I was walking my son, And I was listening to an audiobook on my headphones, but you know, I'm looking around, you know, I think I've got the preservation of mind that you should have. And I'm waiting for a stoplight. I'm waiting at an intersection. And walking across me from right to left, I didn't really notice them until they stepped out in front of me, because this person had actually walked out on the street to step in front of me. And this is a really ugly person. I don't know how to describe it, but still relatively young, like I think late 20s, but ugly. A woman, I assume. And they're wearing a mask, and I'm like, something else is odd here. Not just their demeanor, they're sort of the way they walked, they were sort of waddling. I've got no idea. They looked angry as best as I could tell. And in her right hand, no joke, and that's perhaps why it didn't register, because a lot of things in life are you believe it, then you see it, rather than you see it, then you believe it. I saw in her right hand, she was carrying a sword. Specifically, a rapier. You know, a two-sided, long sword. And I don't just mean carrying it, I mean wielding it. She was holding it with a strong hand by its hilt in exactly the manner you would need to thrust someone with it. I couldn't process it, you know what I mean? She's got a goddamn sword. I was really wondering, and then my gut instinct, by the time she'd walked about 5 yards away, I was phone, call 911, and then my light went, I crossed the street, so I was like, okay, I'll get some distance first and have a look back. By that point, she's now 35 yards, you know, halfway down to the next block. I'm like, I'll call 911, not call 911. And then I'm like, is this that serious? I was still bewildered. Oh my God, do you see all this? See all this? I was just bewildered. And I start dialing out, and I was like, ah, crap, I don't really have a good description of this person. I don't even know what crosswalk I am. I know what numbered road I'm on, and well, no, I wasn't thinking, I should just start following. So about a block away, I started following, and then they turned a left corner, I couldn't see them anymore, and I came across some cops on bicycles. They were across the street and we were blocked by a massive amount of construction, and that's one of the fucking shitty things here, is everything's under construction. And so I waved to them, you know, I'm pointing over there, but you know, I just want to give them the description, like what the hell's going on. And then I realized on their back they're not fucking real police officers, they're fucking parking enforcement. You know, here they're actually a part of the SPD, but they're actually parking enforcement. So I'm like, what the fuck? So I just walk on. Anyway, they caught up with me, got the description. I don't know what happened with that, but ultimately I don't know if that person actually ended up hurting someone. I don't think they did. I was kind of half expecting it to happen on the news or something. But what I realized was that even though I knew that generally speaking that Seattle isn't safe and it's not getting safer. And that's another thing too. I mean, the SPD in Seattle, they have the nerve to say crime is going down. Just ridiculous. I mean, crime's going down, like here, over there. Yeah, it's going down. I don't even have to turn my camera much to be able to point you at the nearest crime. Oh my God. I do like the sign. I need cash to get fucked up beyond all recognition. Someone must have gave him cash earlier today because he's already achieved it. So what I'll say is, like, what I realized from that was I knew the area was dangerous, and I thought I'd taken precautions, you know, keep your head on a swivel, have the tools you need to be able to defend yourself, understand the law, make sure that when it comes time that you're faced with a threat against your life that's credible, imminent, that you have the right and the need to protect your life, you know? But that person was able to get within you know, arm's length of me with a goddamn sword. It's not like they were hiding like a blackjack or something like that. They got within arm's length of me and my son a sword. And they were wielding it. As I said, it wasn't like in a sheath or something. I'm not exaggerating. They were holding it by the hilt, wielding it. And I realized that I couldn't take personal precautions and make an area like Seattle safe. My training, my practice, the equipment, it would have had no use if I had set myself up to be in a position that I was an arm's length of a deranged person carrying a sword. The simple answer is I'm not invincible. You know, in a given environment, I'm not invincible. But I was far from powerless, you know? I can control my environment. You know, that you can do everything you can. You can be trained, you can be aware, but you can also change your environment. And that's just what I need to do right now. I mean, in the last 2 weeks, all of these thoughts have been coming together, and it's just like, what exactly am I doing this for? Why am I staying here? I optimized my life around being able to walk into an office each day without the need of a car and whatnot, just to make my life better. But that isn't the situation right now. The reality is that we can all work from home. Well, not all, but certainly I can, my wife can. And we just don't need to do this anymore. And to have extra spit in your face, this city already takes my money, people who lives here money, companies who decide to base their company in the shithole. They use $100,000 a year per drug addict, homeless person, whatever label you want to put on it that's PC or not PC, I don't give a fuck. $100,000 a year. Now, if $100,000 a year isn't solving something as simple as shelter, something else is fucking wrong, and we know what it is. It's both corruption and the fact that the majority of these people, the problem isn't homelessness, it's fucking drug addiction. And I'm a libertarian, I'm not saying we should be waging the drug war harder, it's just, you can't solve that problem by throwing money at it. And so what did City Council do? You know, if the economy is completely tanked as it is, especially in the city, if everything they've decided to shut down, all my favorite things are gone. There's no more McDonald's in the city anymore. Cinerama's closed. The Flying Heritage Museum is closed permanently. These things permanent. Like, how does that happen? You know, a billionaire dies, Paul Allen, and then literally months, well, not months, like about you know, you could measure it in months. A year or so later, the fund that was meant to keep these pet projects going just vanishes. All the money's gone, it's all gone. Just fucking corruption. And the same is true with the police department. They're not allowed to do anything. The city prosecutor. Last year there was a quote-unquote mass shooting, quote-unquote, in Seattle downtown, and people were shocked, and it was two drug dealers shooting at each other, and they happened to shoot a whole bunch of other people at the same time. And these two thugs who ended up getting innocent people killed in their crossfire had, in the previous year, now they were already felons before even the incident I'm talking about, in their previous year had been caught doing a drive-by shooting, and the city prosecutor let them both go. Didn't even get anywhere, just released them. These people not only were felons, and I should have been illegal. It is illegal for them to have even had those things. They shouldn't have been out on the street. Now you can guess what our mayor said about the incident and what the solutions would have been. So apparently, to solve this issue, it was my guns that were the problem. They were my guns were the problem. That was the problem, not the fact that felons had guns, which has always been illegal, and you could go ahead, raid their home, take their guns. It was my guns that were the problem. That we had to enact more gun control in the city so that we could stop felons from shooting each other. Just a bunch of snakes. And you know, the council rewards us, you know, the people who try to just live here normally. So they just passed. They just passed you know what the problem is next as well, apart from the stuff that I have? Oh, the other stuff that I have, you know, my money, the stuff that I'm working for. So that's a problem too, because $100,000 a year is not enough to solve the homeless problem. We need to up that a lot. So they instituted an income tax. So it's like 2.5% or something like that, or 2.8, something like that. It's not a lot, but in absolute numbers it is if you've got, you know, a husband and wife working. And for what? This fund is designed to only bolster that $100,000. They want to go from $100,000 a year to $160,000 a year. Where's me? Where's me in all this? Like, I get to say that. I pay the taxes. What's helping just regular Seattleites, not the ones who are fucking crazy and making this place a shithole? So that's really the long and the short of it, really. There's a lot of nice things outside of Seattle that you can get access to by living here. And those are very beautiful things. But they're not exclusive things. Washington State is uniquely beautiful, but there's other places that are unique in other ways. I used to live in Switzerland. It's arguably more beautiful. But those things aren't the things that actually concern my daily life. And none of it can make up for the fact that this place is genuinely not safe, no matter how strapped you are, no matter how much your head is on a swivel. So I had a chat with my wife last night. We're moving. I think our managers are supportive, but we're not going to wait for official stuff. It's just, we're going to move and make it good after the fact. Whatever happens, happens. We're moving. So the rest of my weekend, I'm going to be doing all the normal stuff, but we're not going to wait for like leases and stuff like that. We're just going to figure it out, get out either this weekend or the next. Airbnb, any way out.